Okay, we're at noon, everyone. Folks are still logging in. I would suggest maybe we give just a minute extra before we begin.
Okay.
Brenda, are you able to mute just until we can figure out that white noise issue?
Yep. I'm sorry. I've had trouble with this.
Actually, it just got a little better. Whatever you did seemed to work. Okay. Just very quickly, Chris, can you hear me?
Yep, I can.
Okie doke. And Hesse, can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, folks, we have our guests. We've got 58 people, 59 people, and counting. Barry and Tony, we're up to 60 people. People are logging in all the time. When would you like to begin?
I think maybe if we throw it over to Tony and just say hello to everybody.
The floor is yours, sir.
Welcome everybody to eQuo. We're going to do something very special today. We're going to launch a movement. Those are big words when you think about launching a movement, but when you hear what people have to say and why it matters, I think you're going to be coming along, not just for the next hour, but we hope potentially for the balance of your career. My name's Tony Chapman. I've been an entrepreneur my entire life, host of a podcast called Chatter That Matters. And I'm an advocate for small business. And when I look at what's happening with small business in Canada right now, well, there's some incredible forces of change that are rendering much of what they know obsolete, impossible to compete. And it's not just the pandemic that's hit like a sledgehammer. It's just the world that we operate in now. First one is that we're living in this world where there's just too much and too many chasing a finite amount of time. It's becoming harder and harder to get the attention that you need. The attention you need to attract clients, to attract capital, to attract employees. Data. I mean, this is the new oil. And data right now is in the hands of sort of a handful of businesses. And with it, they can personalize their offering and fly fish in unique sound bites, leaving a lot of what small business has to say outside. But it's also the ability to make sure that you're attracting like-minded people, that when you're talking about your idea and you're talking about your dreams and you're animating it, you have people on the other side of the table that are paying attention, that listen generously, that want to step in and help. Maybe they're going to be a future client, a future employee. Maybe they're going to provide capital, be a mentor. And that's what eQuo is all about. So today, to help us sort of share this story over the next 45 minutes, we've got some people, they're all bringing their superpowers. And the interesting thing you learn about eQuo is we believe that everybody that's part of this community has a superpower. They have something they've put in their knapsack along their life. It could be a life lesson that they've learned as a young child. It could be something they've learned in their journey through their career, but they have something they can bring to this network that matters, that's of immense value. It could be intellectual capital, it could be emotional capital, it could be financial capital. So let me introduce the people that are going to be chatting with you today. We're going to talk for about 45 minutes, but we're going to invite you also to ask your questions. The first is obviously the visionary Barry Hillier. Barry's I've known for many years. He's a serial entrepreneur. I competed with him years ago when he had his company called Dashboard, and he won too much business for me. So I gained my respect that way. He's at a stage of his career now where profit's still important, but a higher purpose is what's motivating him. He's got this North Star, and this North Star is he sees a world where small business is armed and ready to go after the business that their ideas deserve. Another co-founder is Chris Carter. You might know Chris from Schulich School. He's been involved in so many startups. He's a technology expert. He really understands the speed bumps that entrepreneurs face, and he's going to be coming in and really talking about what makes eQuo different. Surabhi Gularaj Joshi is someone I've just gotten to know in the last couple of days, and as I said to her earlier, I've become an incredible fan in terms of what her story is and how she's involved in her own startup with health and wellness, but she's also an advocate for women entrepreneurs. She really understands what it means to be an immigrant. You know, immigrants bat outside their weight class. There are more immigrants starting entrepreneurs, but at the same time, there's speed bumps and barriers in front of them. We want to knock those down. Hessie Jones, privacy and data. I mean, one of the most renowned thinkers in the country for it. She's also a writer, an advocate, women entrepreneurs. She's again saying that, you know, we're going to smash through this glass ceiling. We're going to make sure that everybody that wants a seat at the table has a seat with armrests and the ability to move. And Brenda Halloran, who's, you know, great story. I mean, this is a woman that was, if you look at her backstory, divorced, bought a house that was toxic, raising kids, finding a creative way to make things meet. And one day her friend said, run for mayor, and she became mayor of Waterloo. And now she's a champion for making sure that small businesses have a say, and not just small businesses that are located up and down the main streets of big cities, but are in small towns as well. So an incredible group of people. I want to welcome you all, and I'm going to begin with you, Barry, going, you decided that one of the ways to do this, to kickstart this movement, was through a webinar. What are you hoping to get out of the next 45 minutes to an hour?
What I'm hoping to get is awareness and traction for the problem that's facing small business. I'm hoping that people start to realize that there are far too many problems impacting small business in particular that nobody's really paying attention to. And specifically what I'm hoping is that people stop waiting for someone to come about, that somebody starts to realize that the someone that needs to step up and help small business is us. We can be the someone to create change. And what we're going to be talking about are all of the problems of lack of access to capital, lack of access to customers, lack of access to support, and that we can start to provide those solutions through eQuo. So there's multiple ways that you're going to be able to help, and we're going to talk about that. And I'm hoping at the end of this session, people realize that we can be part of this change, we can be part of a movement, and there are lots of ways that people can take part. Join us in our alpha at equoshift.com. Invest in our crowdfund for as little as $250, allowing you to get equity and ownership in our company. Partner with us so that we can help small business and spread the word.
So Barry, just before, you know, earlier today in LinkedIn, I described what you're trying to do, or what we're trying to do, was the equivalent of when Uber decided it made sense to let customers summon their chariot. Or Lavalife said, instead of wandering in a bar and hoping to meet somebody, they would innovate a whole new way of matchmaking so that you could start connecting with the people that matter to you. Was that a fair comparison to what you're trying to do?
It absolutely is. The simple way to explain what we're doing is, you know, it's hard to go dating if the only people that you're asking to connect you with somebody is friends and family. You really need to have a broader outreach to find who's that right person for you that's meeting those specific needs that happen to you. eQuo is going to be capable of matching the right investors, the right capital providers, whether they're invoice companies, whether they're credit card facilities, whether they're alternative banking facilities. And eventually, very shortly after we do our launch, it's going to match you up with customers so you can get the best form of funding, which is paying customers.
Okay, we're going to keep going on that. I just want to move to Chris because, you know, you've got a big name. You're with Schulich. You're doing a lot of work in the startup. A lot of people want to have your credentials on their door. What made you think that eQuo could do something different than all the other places that you could play and participate? What attracted you to this vision in this organization?
I think over the last few years, just watching the ecosystem build in Toronto and Canada to many great things, but just observing it and realizing that it had gone down a very myopic path in terms of every definition of success led to raising venture capital and one day selling your company. And I think that that's not how the business economy and prosperity in Canada was built. It was built by small business people who held their businesses and grew them and found other ways to transition them over time and invest beyond just what the exit opportunity was. And they built these businesses over decades, as opposed to like 5-year plans to take them and to throw them across the border or throw them into somewhere else in the world.
So
So
part
when
of the
I looked
strategy,
at
just on compressing this thought, because I think it's an important one for the audience. Part of this is to take some of the froth. It's not about the exit. It's about bringing an idea, breathing life into it, attracting the intellectual, financial, emotional capital along the way, and creating some longevity and legacy, that this is something that can plant roots in Canada and produce returns for our country. So it's not just a sprint to an exit line. You're saying it's something that has more legacy.
across so many levels, and then observing as more and more focus got put on the venture path, which is nothing wrong with it for those companies. The whole conversation shifted away from any possibility of people celebrating or talking about or being proud of building small businesses and small companies that had different sets of objectives. And then those companies as well, increasingly, having challenges finding their way to the networks, to the information, as you said, Tony, to all those things that are going to fuel you in the beginning. And not only by size, but also by groups within the business business economy of entrepreneurs that have a whole new set of challenges, new Canadians and people from different cultures and backgrounds are facing, that they're disproportionately affected because they don't have pre-existing access to the network. So what I love about eQuo is that it completely changes that game and takes it from small scale network access to the things you need to success and turns it into a platform approach, and a platform approach that's going to benefit tens and tens of thousands of small business entrepreneurs across the country and eventually hundreds of thousands.
Well, Serby, I want to go to you on this, because you made a very bold statement, Chris. You said, that people that are on the outsides, they're not part of that sort of, they could be immigrants, they could be people that feel marginalized. This is going to be a platform that invites everybody in. Do you buy into that? Because I know you're a huge advocate for it. I know you see those mountains in front of us more so because you've lived through them and you've climbed them. Do you buy into that's possible?
Absolutely, Tony. And the thing is, when Barry and I started talking initially, it did seem too good to be true, because I think for majority of the women out there, they're very aware of the pinch and the crisis that's felt out there, being in the caretaking role, and then being an entrepreneur on top of that. You are really kind of scrambling for resources and support, and you're really left to be on your own. And I think across the board, it's being felt that there is no kind of collaborative support for entrepreneurial women. And when Barry came up with this idea, it took me a while to grasp around that there is an alternative where the community can actually step up and small businesses can really support each other. And this platform, I think, is phenomenal for what it's really collectively planning to do. I think it's going to be revolutionary. It's going to be a game changer, I think, from many aspects. And I think just looking at this room, just looking at the kind of the caliber that's here, it's just a starter, a teaser to what's to come ahead. So definitely I'm on board, and I'm inviting other entrepreneurial women of color, Black women, Indigenous, South Asian, women with disabilities, or anyone who's struggling right now to get on board, because this is where you're going to get the kind of people who are there to support each other, not just make it on their own, but actually rise together, which is the idea of how it should be.
So Hetzi, I want to go to you for a minute. Data and privacy is in your knapsack. You're not only renowned in this country, but thought leader around the world on it. And that could just be your career, but you also are an advocate to making sure that everybody has a seat at the table. a lot of what we just heard would be based on, I trust this thing. I've heard it before, but this one I trust. Do you think that trust is a barrier to having people believe in the sense of community, like-minded, equal, given the fact that so many people maybe have been burnt in the past by it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this we live in. I agree that the more that people in algorithms and data, then they're going to see some. The reality is that there's two sides of the coin. There's one about like what is in the data. The other part is how we manipulate the data. Actually vote in favor of minority founders and women. Them, and we all know. And Tony, you came from understand targeting, micro targeting, and the adverse effects that it has. From my perspective, especially being both on the privacy and data side, venture capitalist side, I want to ensure that, as we founders who are doing the right thing, it's also that we're looking to founders that bring in diverse perspectives. And data is a huge part of what's going to happen tomorrow. So the technology ecosystem, for example, has to be a lot more responsible. It's not about representation, making sure that we're actually looking at technologies that do things that keep in mind. And
you would
the
argue
impacts of
if I was Google or some of the big data plays, I would argue we're already doing that. Why do you think that movement should come from the grassroots and come from small business and entrepreneurs versus surrendering it to, the half a dozen companies that are, worth trillions of dollars now because they're valuing data in a way and monetizing data in a way that we never imagined 10 years ago?
Because they are considered an oligopoly. They have the power structure to define what will happen in the future. And so they're setting the rules for how data is used. And let's a lot of these companies, Facebook, Microsoft, they're doing in ways that are already harming people from a data and a bias standpoint. That is already baked into some of the structural biases that are already in our systems. They're the ones that are leaving technology, especially from an AI standpoint, that gain is the ability to perpetuate a lot of the systemic issues that are already, and we need other technologies to be able to step up to the table and combat that before it's too late.
Brenda, I want to now go to you. And I've read your story, and I was just very moved by the fact that you've had a lot of challenges in your life. You really had to apply creativity to overcome them. And not on a whim, but I think because so many people were impressed by your ability to have resilience, you became the mayor of Waterloo with no political experience, a very well-respected and loved mayor. And now you're really, with Startup Canada, a champion for making sure that Startup Canada just doesn't happen in the GTA or Montreal or Ottawa, but it also happens in small towns. Why is that so important to you?
Well, my father was an entrepreneur in the early 1970s when we weren't talking about entrepreneurs and small business. And I learned from him the challenges that small business people lead or are exposed to. Becoming the mayor of Waterloo during a time when innovation and technology was just exploding, BlackBerry was at its peak. So I saw a lot of companies start for nothing and building themselves up. So that's kind of part of my background. But what I'm really impressed with, we don't, as an economic nation, pay attention to our leaders, our entrepreneurs. We're really focused on giving a lot of money to the research centers, the technology centers, the hubs, and that's all fantastic. But the statistics show that 98% of businesses in Canada are small businesses, and they employ close to 10 million people. And I don't think that the governments at all levels shine enough light and enough funding and enough supports on our small business communities. And to me, eQuo is so important because we're going to take the role of entrepreneurs ourselves. We're not going to be dependent on government. We're going to give supports to small businesses at grassroots levels. We're going to open up opportunities for mentoring, sharing of ideas and resources. And I think a lot of small business people are just doing the best they can to stay afloat. And they don't know where to go for access to money, to talent, to technology. And there's a lot of opportunities for us to provide those avenues of experience and resources for them. So I think we've got to support small business in Canada. The pandemic has knocked out a lot of people, and it's time to rebuild, reconnect, and get this country moving again.
So Barry, if I was playing devil's advocate, which is really my role as a host today, I would say, isn't that already covered by the Chambers of Commerce and the Canadian Federation of Independent Business? Is that not well? Are we better off sort of shouldering and signing up to them, or do you think that what you're trying to build is different, and if so, why?
I think it's different, and I think I'm a big proponent of yes and. I think this isn't a situation where it's them or us. It's actually them and us. We all have a role. We're filling in the gaps, and there are a lot of gaps as we've mentioned. We are filling in the gaps that are allowing alternative funders to come in. So right out of the gate, if you were to take a look at a lot of the businesses that you've just mentioned, they're closed ecosystems that generally are regionalized. So you're hitting more the urban centers or the hubs that Brenda talked about. We're going to connect all of the places in between there. And for the people that are relevant, we'll push them, whether it's to Mars or whether it's to Communitech or wherever it might be. But there's all of these, left out geographies that we need to pull in, and that's where we can start to pull them in. We can start to pull in accredited investors who aren't part of existing angel groups or VC groups. Why? Because they want to focus on construction companies, manufacturing companies, retail companies, all of the places that typically don't have places in who you've mentioned. And so we're really also focused on being completely open to allowing us to be able to be that glue that can help redirect the right people, because a lot of people are being focused on areas like Mars that isn't something that's applicable for them. We can find the right people for Mars and help the people that are in other aspects in other areas.
So Bree, let's go to you, because you've got you've got a great business going. How would you view what Barry's trying to offer? How would you value that? Because I want to kind of create some clarity for the audience of, if I'm a small business owner and I'm joining this movement, what's in it for me? Because I'm busy, I'm focused on everything that seems to be urgent. I'm really not thinking ahead as much as I'd like to. Tell me why I should pay attention to this, and how can I get the most out of it?
Thanks, Tony. So I think one of the questions in the chat was about trust. And as a small business, I know that anybody who started a business ever, they can relate the amount of things that you need to take care of. And what you're always looking for is this trust to build on with the network that you create. And right now there isn't. Like, there's LinkedIn, there's other places where you can go in and connect with people, but there is no common ground. And when we say trust, what really it means is the community that's really in it, not just for self-interest, but they're also there to give, like a real true sense of community. So I think that's the difference, whether you're talking about investors, it's the approach is totally different than like a conventional VC or other companies would have. It's about like actually investing in the business to make sure that it's successful. Talking about talent, the kind of people that you meet through a trusted referral is totally different than someone you would connect to directly or someone who would apply to. And meeting other peers who are in the same journey, same boat as you, I think that's really about bringing people together and forming a place of the ground where we know that this is not something which we're on our own. This is a community that is helping each other out, which I find is something really missing in the current economy, which is like, it's really needed right now.
So Chris, when you're at Schulich and when you're, you've got a cohort, you're bringing together a group of people trying to start things up. I can understand how you can build community and trust, but when we're dealing with businesses of different sizes, different scopes, different ideas, some that I've inherited my parents' business, some are, the whole tapestry with small business in Canada. How would we go about building that community so that people say, I belong there. There's something that I can value there versus being almost too big and too complex to feel like I've got a piece of the quilt.
I think one is delivering clearly on the value that we're going to bring, and that's going to be in like key moments in these businesses' lives and trajectories where they need to accelerate and they know they don't have access to the support from an organization or an individual, and we're going to have the ability to accelerate that access, connect with them with the right people, and deliver in those moments. And I think that promise and delivering on that is going to build. I think number two, the purpose that Barry has and what I believe in and when I signed on board is also that we are going to live what it is that we are saying we are supporting. We're not here to build a pumped up tech platform entity that we then sell off into the world to somewhere else. We're building for something for Canada, for the small business community, for the long term. And collectively, in terms of how we're raising the money to do it, all the people who have been supporting in and all the people who are going to continue supporting, they're all contributing as opposed to going down a path that puts us on being in being on the opposite side of what it is that we're saying we're going to help. We're building our own collective small business with all of these contributors from across Canada and across the community, and we're going to build it, we're going to hold it, we're going to own it together, and we're going to apply it to the true purpose of what we have. This isn't something that is like we're building the next LinkedIn platform in the world that will be sold off to XYZ or whatever a couple of years down the road. This is something that is going to be collectively owned and is it's an opportunity to own part of something. It's clearly an investment, but it's way bigger than that. It's an opportunity to be part of doing something that is a game changer for the country.
Hessie, do you think there's a conflict of interest in being something for profit and something that has a higher purpose, or can they exist together?
I think they can exist together. I think there is a misconception that because most of the, let's say, companies invested in the past, by the way, that have been dominated by like out of Silicon Valley, they are the most profitable. Is that there isn't a pipeline problem. We have lots of opportunities for other entrepreneurs that are women that can be just as profitable, but they haven't had the access. So from my perspective, just being in this industry for a short time, one thing I've learned about the VC world is that there's this blind spot there among investors who think that they have a balanced view of how they invest in. But really, like they tend to stay in this bubble that people, this risk perception that basically says we have to stay within our comfort zone. What we've invested in the past is basically what is going to be true to give it returns in the future. The reality is that opportunity is more about finding those opportunities that have been underfunded over. And Morgan Stanley actually put out a report that basically says that if we remove these blind spots in investing in multicultural women-owned businesses for $6.8 trillion in gross receipts, which is 3 output of and a missed opportunity of 4.4 trillion. So there definitely out there, but nobody has taken advantage of it.
Oh, I think we may have had Tony.
Hey Barry, just going to jump in and extend on some of these thoughts here, and one of the questions that Tony asked you just a few moments ago, related to shouldn't we be turning to the accelerators or the incubators or the chambers? I mean, these are all organizations that have their hearts in the right place and they're doing the right thing. Not many of them are actually like equity incented to share in the upside of these companies. They're doing it because they believe in it's a path. But we just have to be honest as well. Supporting the small business community is in this way at scale like we're talking about is not something that can be achieved by having a programmatic accelerator regionalized approach. The reason why those all focus on one model and one method, because it's extremely complicated to provide programs and methods and models and mentors and everything that goes with it for so many different types of businesses at stages and sizes and like perspectives in terms of what they're doing. So that's another reason why the only way to do it at scale for the small business community, this is what I believe in, has to be a platform-centric, community-empowered approach across the scale. It can't be. You can't just go to, like we say, like, well, Mars, why don't or whoever. Not we shouldn't. I'm not to call anyone out, but any one of those organizations and say, hey, why aren't you doing this? Because what we're doing is sophisticated and complex and another way of thinking about it that's not in the traditional approach on how do you support a business, right? It's a different way that actually like brings a collective community approach and a platform approach, and that's the only way that we can achieve it at scale. So that's why I think from Tony's question, that's why we have to not we're not here to to demonize the accelerators or the incubators. They're all working their tails off trying to help all these companies and do all this work, but they're simply not in a method or a model, or as Brenda said, supported by the government in a way that would allow them to achieve this mission. So now someone has to pick up this mission, and here we are with eQuo.
Well, and I think that's not only right. I think when you take a look at the reality that none of those regional programs are really set up for existing companies. There's that massive gap post-startup pre-$10 million, which is 88% of the companies out there. And they don't really qualify for any of these programs, and they don't match up with what their needs are. We're talking about businesses that they've got cash flow issues, they've got training issues, they're trying to find customers. And what we're organizing with eQuo is the ability to actually meet those needs in a scalable way. And for any of the people who are taking a look at whether Mars is right for them, we can keep pushing people to them, but there's a very large segment where it's just not right for them. And that's where I think we can play a major role.
I'd like to add on to that. It's really important. eQuo is so important at this time for the Canadian economy because from what I understand, and I've spoken to so many small businesses, especially in the Waterloo KW community, they are intimidated to go into the communitechs and the accelerator centers because they don't think they belong there, that they fit in. Everybody's kind of in this cool inner circle of technology and innovation, and small business entrepreneurs don't see themselves as that. They're more ma and pa. They're more, talking to their friends and neighbors and family about, what do I do next? How do a Facebook account? What do I do? And I think eQuo is going to knock down those barriers, especially for women and new Canadians, because they definitely don't feel welcome in these large regional facilities, even though the government tries and the organizations try as best they can to make people feel welcome. I know it's very intimidating to walk through those doors and see a lot of young hip people drinking coffee, and you're maybe an older middle-aged woman looking at trying to build a business that she doesn't feel comfortable in these settings. And eQuo is going to eliminate all of these barriers, all this inaccessibility to money, to funds, to resources, and to people to help coach and mentor them. And I think for Tony had said, talked about, well, what about the chambers? I see that the chambers, they are all struggling in a lot of ways too to keep their members and to stay kind of on top of things and relevant. I think that eQuo could be a major partner with the chambers as time goes on to help connect within their own communities of business, small businesses, to help connect them and provide resources. For me, eQuo is about partnerships. It's about everybody just kind of working together for the benefit of themselves, their community, and for the Canadian economy. I think eQuo is really, really exciting.
Well, I want to pick up on that, what Brenda said, and link that with what Chris and what Tony were saying. We don't need to be competitive with one another. When somebody was talking to me about, isn't Mars doing this, or Communitech doing this, or the Chamber's doing this, the reality is, until there is more supply than demand, we don't need to worry about that. But the reality is, small businesses and entrepreneurs are not getting enough of everything that they need. So for us, we really want to drive partnerships. We want to drive collaboration, and we want to be part of something where if eQuo can't provide something or somebody can provide it better, that's who we want to push them towards. And that's a big piece that I think is missing in the Canadian mentality, where we're too much about what's in it for me right now versus actually looking at it and saying, you know what? It's the Helen Keller comment, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. eQuo is us coming together to say, look, if we all help each other achieve our potential, we all win. Hassie,
I want to add. Sorry, go ahead.
I was actually just going to ask your thoughts.
Yeah, I think I listened to this, and I like the traditional VC community and everything, getting a return for the investors, and we're talking about 3 to 5 years. So there's increasing pressure to do that. And the reason that we look at companies that are technology, SaaS, or anything that's trying to do something, let's say, these are businesses that we want to scale specifically. They could actually make an impact on the world. But the reality is, even from a small business perspective, you don't need to be huge to actually make an impact. Some businesses can be and keep the size that they are and still be effective, be impactful in their corner of their geography. And I think that's an area where I think eQuo really helps, because from a VC perspective, the amount of pressure put on businesses to be, let's say, the one and funded is ridiculous, and it's hard enough to try to jump through. For a small business that does this every day, what can they do to act? What support can they get so that they could actually exist and do things in the markets that they're trying to serve?
There's another piece there I'd like to add in, if I could, is that this also, having this solution in place, also has a benefit to all of the technology businesses and companies where they're in their small stage, because they're not always big, and they're not always like at that VC table. And here's where there's like another layer of benefit, which is that, you know, in those early 24 months, when you can achieve more with less equity-based funding, you actually retain control of your company, and you can retain, you know, a deeper percentage, and you have more of an opportunity to dictate what the future is of the business, and whether it's going to be driven to be something that gets sold in 5 years or held for a longer period of time, or what the benefit is that comes back into the community if you do sell it because you own a larger stake. And I've seen situations where founders who were just able to hold on for an extra 12 months had the difference of like raising at a valuation where they would have given up half their company just to get 100. I mean, I know this is still a lot of money and not everyone has access, but just to get to $150,000. And then literally 12 months later, the valuation on the business was such that they were able to raise and retain 85% control of the company for the founding team. And that just opens up different paths and different options. And these guys who did this that I'm talking about, they're in our community, you know, here as eQuo, Blade Filters. They wound up going on not to raise venture capital, And this year so far, they've done $26 million of sales as a small business that's not VC backed, and they have full control of the business. But, but they had network access to people and places who were able to get them that funding at that crucial early stage. And not everybody does. Not everybody has access to which I'm aware of, to the Schulich School of Network alumni base, right? That's a privilege that a lot of people have access to. But eQuo will give that kind of democratized access to people to find those ways, not to have to be forced down the wrong paths, or to have the wrong kind of money come into the business, too soon or with too much force or control. It gives small business democratized leverage to be a different, better version of themselves and to be more in control of their destiny.
Well, and adding to that, I think one of the things that I know really pushes me is you have all the things that you talked about in terms of founders being able to maintain some sense of control. But what's crazy is 1 out of 5 businesses that fails was actually profitable. They weren't able to manage their cash flow. So simply by having cash flow management options, by understanding financial literacy, so that they are able to reach out to being able to go into invoice factoring, they're able to be in a position to actually not fail, get past that little crunch that they're going through, and then go on to continued success. We're losing people for all the wrong reasons across the board, and this is a large part of what we want to solve.
Excellent.
So-
Barry, I'm actually just going to jump in here. Hi, everybody. Dan Turcott here. I'm producing.
I'd like to, if you would take time to just kind of talk about eQuo and what vision. I think people need to hear about this because it's been a long time coming, and you've put a lot of love and labor into it, and then you've got all of us behind you excited about what your vision and your vision.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, the vision for us is really to create an inclusive platform focused with entrepreneurs at the top, where entrepreneurs can get access to all the resources that they need. That we're bringing in all of the underrepresented or the people that have not been included in the ecosystem. And we're going to be focusing all of those people within a supportive community dedicated to small business and dedicated to helping those founders go from being small to being the big companies that they're capable of. Circling back to the potential that Hesse talked about that we're missing. And Tony is back, so I'm just going to answer, and then I'll throw it back over to Tony here. There are multiple ways that we can all help in achieve this. Again, please join us as being part of our alpha. We're looking at launching with 5,000 entrepreneurs. So for the entrepreneurs in the audience, join at equoshift.com. We're looking for 300 accredited investors. Join us at equoshift.com. We're also looking for partners, all the capital providers who want to do business with small business. Email me at bhillier@equoshift.com, and we can have a conversation. And then lastly, we are building our front funder. Put in an investment. You're going to get Class A shares in eQuo, owning the platform. That's a big part for us. And it can be as low as $250. We want to have a lot of investors helping build this and support this as we grow. But Tony, you're back. Hello, sir.
Yeah, sorry, I'm down in Florida and had a complete power failure. So I'm back on the beauty of Wi-Fi. So hopefully it's coming through okay. Barry, when you talk about investors and you talk about join us, is there any advantage for being first mover to move in now, or should we be very Canadian and take a wait and see approach?
Yeah, that is a very Canadian approach. There absolutely is. First and foremost, if you're looking at investing, you're going to be investing in a platform where, if you can imagine being one of the first people to invest in Tesla, there are obvious advantages as we grow. But it's not just about investing in a company that is looking, as Chris said, not to sell out, but we're looking at an IPO. We're looking at going global. We have created multiple revenue streams within our platform that are going to ensure that this is a profitable business that can be self-contained so we can do more for more entrepreneurs. You are also going to be part of a solution that we all know is out there. And if we take the typical Canadian approach, we're going to continue to lose out on those opportunities of having these companies be successful, allowing our economy to grow, allowing our jobs to keep building, and allowing us to be able to go out and make a real impact on the world. So those barn raisers that invest now are not only going to be able to financially benefit, but they're going to have a much higher level of impact within the community, and to use this community to advance themselves personally, as well as collectively advancing all of the businesses and stakeholders in eQuo.
So we talked a lot. I'll open this up to any one of you that want to answer. We talked a lot about trust. We talk a lot about a level playing field. How do you balance that with the sense when you start talking about multiple streams of revenue, or you're talking about, like profit with a purpose? How do you make sure we're walking that high wire in a way that people say it's community first, entrepreneurs first, and within that, there's still an opportunity to build something that's going to create, it's going to create a Tesla for Canada? Does anybody want to jump in on that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Go
ahead.
Thanks, Tony. I think one thing, like as a marketer, like the one way to actually is to set up the metrics. Like, what are you going to measure yourself against? And so from the outset, like what are the impact measures that are important to us? So how much of the Canadian ecosystem are we impacting? To what extent, on average, do we drive growth from the businesses that we're investing? How much more intergenerational wealth has been impacted? That could take, but also the employment factor as well. I think those things have to be established in order for us to actually hold true to what we're trying to achieve.
I think as well, Tony, that's
and ask of your
I think we're losing Tony. Chris, it looked like you were about to jump in though.
I'm going to go with where I was going to jump in, and when we get Tony back with more clarity, we'll be happy to answer his question. What I was going to add is that the definition of a business in terms of how it balances these two things out is the leadership and the ownership, which is us collectively as a group of people across the country, is when we have people in one hand and profit in the other hand. How do we make our decision? And that was always how I challenged myself when I ran my business, was like, I've got a big giant check and I've got a client who's demanding we all work over Christmas, and I've got my people, right? But I can make another $500,000, but I've got this. How do you make those decisions? And so I think a big part of that is going to be, and this is where, I mean, Barry, you've been consistent and clear and have proven yourself throughout the entire journey in terms of how you make decisions, is when there's times when it might be an easier shortcut to take money, right? Or to make the right decision and be aligned only with people who are true to our purpose. You've consistently made those decisions as to who comes in versus who might be easier or faster way to get a little boost along with the check. So I think that you've made those types of decisions, and it's all about what we say no to, right? It's all about how we continue to stay true to that purpose. And what I love about this as well is that the idea of we're really looking to break through on what it means to crowdfund a company with a collective purpose, and then we'll be collectively accountable to each other. It's not just two people sitting on top of a cap table with a a group of investors with a particular viewpoint of the world on top of them. It's a collective group of people who are all publicly accountable to each other in this way as to the decisions we're making and how we're going to build it together. So I think that ultimately is like we are building a structure and an approach to how we do this and how we govern it and how we work it that is like in keeping with one that is like going to be true to its roots and true to its purpose within the community.
I think going back to Tony's comment about truth and people believing in just business overall, we as Canadians do tend to be overly cautious, and it's to the of our economy. Trying to get $250 out of somebody is a challenge because Canadians don't seem to have that risk factor built into them more like Americans do. Like there tends to be a lot more. Americans tend to just want to try something out, whereas Canadians, we're just tough to get money out of. And I think with eQuo, because we're starting out with asking for $250, $500, $1,000, it's doable to people, and it doesn't make them afraid financially. And I think there's a bit of a romantic idea for people that they've invested $250. They're going to get investment in a company that's going to help their parents and their kids. But Barry and I have talked about too an overlooked demographic that I think we need to start focusing on is that there are aging retiring baby boomers leaving the workforce, and they are a huge source of information, funds, and looking back and trying to maybe help fund their grandchildren or their children. And with eQuo, we've talked about how do we start reaching out to that large group of affluent potential investors, but they believe in their children and their grandchildren, their ability to start businesses. So I think eQuo will have maybe an opportunity to, again, it's accessible, it's not intimidating, you can go online, you can do something quick, and you can feel good about yourself and that you're in Canada and your kids, your neighbors.
Hey, I sorry to jump in here, but I'd love to hear from Serbia as well too, in terms of like you have that small business, and you're deeply embedded in this part of what we're talking about. When you look out a year from now, and 2 years from now, and you think about what the community could become, I'd love to hear from you in terms of what you'd like to see it be and what you're hoping that it's going to do for a small business community.
Yeah, no, just listening to everybody and what they're offering, right? Like in terms of talking about the platform, and I'm just like blown away by what this could be in terms of what it could really bring together in terms of change. And just looking at that, there's so many perspectives. Like I'm a strong believer that each person and each person's circumstance are so unique, and especially during COVID, it's everybody struggling in some way or the other. And I particularly find that opening it up for the minority group and having them get involved, I think that is in itself a huge step. Like having this platform, for example, just having different voices come in and talk about, and Tony's doing such a great job, even though with the technical difficulties in Florida, he's still managing to question us on both sides. And I think what is really important is to really hear different perspectives. And what's happening right now as a society, there's this huge awareness and value to diverse opinions. But what do we do with that? Like, how do we actually tangibly convert that into something which benefits people and not just a small group of people, but actually at large? And I think this eQuo movement is really about putting those ideas into motion. And I can speak on behalf of from an immigrant journey. Like we travel, like I can speak from like how it's been in terms of starting my first business with my husband, and then this is my second entrepreneurial take up, and I can speak that representing a lot of different communities, it is definitely fragmented, And to have an opportunity to share this platform, to voice different challenges. And I think the people who have been speaking in the chat have such amazing contributions, and everybody is so excited to help out. So I think it's really about coming together and making strides and actually creating a movement where we produce results. And I think Barry and Chris and the team are really committed to that, and that's something that we're betting on. So we're in it with you.
Folks, I'm going to jump in here. It's Dan. We're at 5-1. We've run a little bit over. The conversation is amazing, but we do have a few questions. So Barry, would you like to give a couple of closing thoughts, or should we jump into questions?
Like maybe when we jump into some questions, answer some of these, and then I wouldn't mind everybody being able to have, maybe a final thought as to what Chris is saying. What are you hoping is going to happen based on your involvement? Because I have to thank everybody. It's an exceptional group of ambassadors. You guys really are superheroes. And I'd really love to maybe answer a couple of questions, but then I'd like everybody to maybe talk about why did you get involved and what are you hoping to see over the next year?
Great. So I'll quickly jump into a couple of questions. So there were some questions about how the political arena can help, and Brenda, you might be most qualified to answer this. I would be curious to know, before we even ask how politicians can help, maybe the real question is, how is a platform like eQuo going to make small business more attractive for the political arena to actually get behind?
Brenna, did you hear that?
Barry, could you summarize that back for the group?
Yeah, actually, Dan, you're right there. Did you want to repeat that question to Brenda?
So Brenda, the question.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I just didn't hear anything for a minute there. I'm so sorry. And we're all sitting here.
So the question.
Sum up what you're saying. I saw lips moving. I couldn't hear anything.
No problem at all. So the question was, how can politicians and political leaders and government actually help small businesses more? But my question before that would be, how will a platform like eQuo and how will us helping each other make us
Right, Barry. Give me another question. I'll go on to another question.
Get more government support.
Barry, I think we're having some problems there with Dan and with Brenda on the mic. But I think just to jump in there for the question, Dan, I think it would be that one of the real things that we're looking to do, and we're having a great meeting on this just yesterday, is looking at the amount of data and insights that we can bring out of the platform that relate to where the barriers exist for all sorts of small businesses or different groups of people that face these barriers disproportionately, and how we can understand what those barriers are, where people are breaking through, and design solutions around them. And I think the government operates at a scale, obviously, that it requires a level of data and proof point and insight that goes beyond the anecdotal, right? They can emotionally react to the anecdotal, but they can't design and enact policy off the anecdotal. And so they need a different level of data that comes out of this. So I think that's the biggest thing. It's more than advocacy. It's that if we have people using this platform and connecting with us and telling their stories and gathering that information, we're going to have a level of research-backed data that will allow us to influence how future policy is designed. And then ideally, the scenario should be that the next time that there's a massive funding outlay related to venture capital in the country, we should be in a position to justify a matching outlay that goes to the small business community with like a method to actually roll it out. Like that would be the dream for me in terms of where we would eventually get to.
Great. Barry, I'm going to ask one more question to you, and we're at 12:59. I'll make this the last question, but it's a good one. Somebody asked, and I know you've covered this, but I want to be specific.
Can you hear me now?
What? Yeah, we got you now, Brenda.
Sorry, Barry, can you hear me?
Yeah, actually, Brendan, we're just finishing up.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm all done. I'm so sorry.
that's okay. Dan, sorry, you were saying?
So what people were asking is, what's the advantage? What's the benefit to a small private investor actually investing through eQuo? And I know we've sort of touched on it, but you've talked a lot about the power of small, about actually understanding where you're investing in. Can you just touch on that clearly for a minute?
Yeah, well, so there's going to be two aspects. Investing through the crowdfund platform in eQuo, the advantages are you're gaining Class A shares. You're going to be able to benefit from all of the upside of where we take the company through all of our additional growth and additional funding rounds. More importantly, you're also going to be helping all of the businesses that are on our platform by helping them get access to funding, access to capital, access to customers, which has the ancillary benefit of growing their own personal growth. Beyond that, though, once the platform's up, the advantage of accredited investors and retail investors investing in the small businesses directly in our platform, and that will be a separate transaction where we're creating the connections, is you're helping them make sure that they're actually focused on building their company, but they're getting the resources that they need to actually scale. And that's a big missing piece that goes back to what Hesse was saying. There's a massive opportunity cost here that is being lost. And these are companies that are in areas that really are important for our industry. They're manufacturing companies like Chris talking about blade filters. They are construction companies. They are retailers. They are future Tim Hortons in terms of franchisable small businesses. And those are companies that a lot of these accredited retail investors are going to be able to support and benefit financially from making that investment in them early, and for investing in them not because they're chasing a unicorn, but they see the real business potential that other people are missing.
That's great. Thank you, Barry. Folks, we are over time at this point, so maybe we could just go to closing thoughts. Who'd like to start?
I don't mind starting. So one of the reasons I joined as an advisor is that I did see a huge potential here, and the fact that you're supporting all businesses is one thing, but what that does is also it surfaces those businesses that we talked about that have been overlooked, have equal footing in terms of opportunity. And I think as about the kinds of insights that we're trying to develop is to be able to understand has been going on in the past with respect to those kinds of businesses that have been traditionally overlooked, and see how eQuo can actually be the platform for when it comes to those specific businesses.
Serbi?
Yeah, no, I'll quickly say that entrepreneurship for anyone who's started a business knows that it is a lonely journey, and we didn't touch upon the mental health impact that it has on the founder or founders. And I think to have that understanding that you're not alone, and you can really reach out to anyone in this network that you're creating. I think it has huge value beyond what we can quantify. So it impacts families, it impacts society. So I think this is phenomenal, and it's been a great sharing today.
And Chris, and then we'll jump over to Brenda.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I had a great time hanging out with everyone on the panel. Lots of wonderful thoughts and insights and passion there, and great questions from the chat today and the group, and I hope we're capturing all those. We can follow up with all of them individually. This is something that we haven't seen before in the country, and it's been painstakingly worked on in living rooms and coffee shops and classrooms and all kinds of places where we brought it, and now into the Zoom world. So We just would love to have more of you on board, working with us, supporting the vision, and creating something really special. And I will tell you that I, have, followed this based on Barry, and his commitment has been unrelenting to do it in the hard times when it was tough, when the first round of potential investors were saying no, and he's just kept going and going and going. And I think it's very unique that someone would stand up in the country and take on a mission that is this challenging but this important. It's why I put my time behind it. It's why I put my money into it as well too. And I just hope that everyone collectively will pick up what they've heard today and find a variety of ways to help this out.
And Brenda.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you, Chris. I think Barry is the catalyst for all of us being here today, but it is because we believe in your vision and what you've been talking about to us to me about a couple of years now. And you're tenacious, and you're nimble, and you pivot on a dime, and you follow leads, and you stop when you need to stop. To me, you pretty well epitomize what a Canadian small entrepreneur is all about. You don't take no. You pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you start all over again. And look where you've led us to. But I truly believe that we need to focus on small businesses in Canada. I'm a chair of the board of Startup Canada, and we're going to be looking at how we can partner with eQuo, and how we can help entrepreneurs and small businesses across Canada and share knowledge, resources, information, and even to just meet people, because small business people are really isolated in a lot of ways, and to be able to tap into a network of like-minded entrepreneurs, I think, will be really, really beneficial to them, especially when we talk about mental health issues for small business people and what they've had to deal with. eQuo is going to be here to be a partner in so many ways, and to open resources and opportunities. And you know what? We really care. We want to see small businesses thrive, and we care, and that's what we're all about. So thank you, Barry, for your leadership and for getting this going.
No, and I want to thank everybody that joined us as well. Thank you for your time today. This is something that I'm very passionate about, but I'm not alone. We started this by saying, small business is issuing an SOS. Is anybody listening? And the reality is, it's not falling on deaf ears. All the people that joined us today, that notion of why should somebody join us today instead of waiting, and it's simply because we have to today. If we're going to see change, we have to step up. We have to get off the sidelines. We have to be very un-Canadian. We need to actually be the change that we need to see, step into the middle of that dance floor, and make a contribution that is going to have significant effects. And I'm really grateful to have the people that have been guests and advisors and everybody that's helped us so far. What I would leave this is saying, we need your help. We need you to be the next superheroes, to join our team and exercise your superpowers, invest in our crowdfund, join our alpha, partner with us, and be part of the community to help ensure our entrepreneurs can get the resources that they need, and spread the word. And I am happy to join any meeting with any of you out there who want to get involved and spend time to go and answer your questions and take as much time as I need, because we're going to win this one investor at a time, one entrepreneur at a time, one partner at a time. So thank you very much for all of your time today, and have a fantastic rest of the week. Thank you.